Welcome to Fightline, brought to you in conjunction with Buy My Fight and Westbound Logistics Services. My name is Ben Doherty, and by far the biggest story on the horizon today is the news that the British Boxing Board of Control have suspended the licence of WBO super middleweight champion Billy Joe Saunders for a video on social media. I think it's been well documented, could be construed as a charter for domestic violence and advice for disgruntled husbands, partners, etc. on how to tackle a bird who is giving you a bit of mouth. At the outset, let me say that Billy Joe Saunders is a friend of mine. I've known him, we're not blood brothers, but I've known him for years, since the days of the old TKO gym at TKO in Canning Town, and for many of the years that he trained with the great Jimmy Tibbs. Throughout that time, I've found Billy Joe to be a prince of a man, good banter, a lot of fun to be around, very talented fighter, of course, a loyal guy, had my back when the chips were down in my own personal odyssey, and someone who's always willing to do things for children, charities, for fans, all the rest of it, nothing too much trouble, a very affable fella, admittedly with a very mischievous sense of humour, and at times what appears to be a kind of public relations death wish. But Billy Joe, the genuine Billy Joe, is a man that we speak of, you heard Eddie Hearn refer to today, as a guy with a heart of gold, but who seems to have this kind of rampant self-sabotage aspect to him, particularly when he's bored at a time when we're in global pandemic lockdown. They say that boredom is a big enemy for a lot of fighters, particularly talented fighters and champions who perhaps aren't wired up entirely the same way as normal, well-balanced members of society. And you know, we've seen a few things. I thought the coronavirus prank, as extreme as it was, and most people wouldn't do it, wouldn't go there, I did think that was kind of funny for my sins. You know, when that message was going viral, the voice messages of Billy sounded almost like he had the virus himself as he's cracking up, explaining what had happened to his mate when he tried to board the plane to New York or wherever it was. You know, but this, I must admit, of all the things in Billy Joe Gate that we've seen over the years, the social media gaffes that have drawn censure and previously a fine of 100 grand from the British Boxing Board of Control, this one I did think, being honest, was particularly crass, pointless and tasteless, and I think he's acknowledged that. The thing for me here, I mean, I think anybody who's saying, oh, get over it, you snowflakes, it's just a bit of banter. No, it's not that. I think there are certain things you can't joke about. I didn't think the video had any comic charm. I didn't think, I think it is handing out dodgy messages, and there is a reason people these days complain about political correctness as if it's an entirely bogus thing, but I think political correctness is the reason why we don't have open racism and guys like Jim Davidson with his chalky jokes on primetime TV anymore, sitcoms like Love Thy Neighbour, and you know, the fact is we are in a more libertarian environment these days. Women have seen a lot of emancipation from previous decades, and personally I think that is the way life should be. I try to see, we can't denude gender roles of their context and the fact that women have certain generic characteristics perhaps, and the same as we said for men, but to be honest I think domestic violence isn't really a subject that you can joke about, and I think that inevitably Billy Joe's a very smart guy. He can see any counter coming in the ring, and one would have expected him to have anticipated the negative reaction to this that he's certainly seen has gone viral. At the minute, a ban from boxing, or not a ban but a suspension of one's licence from the licensing authority, in his case the British Boxing Board of Control, is sort of academic insofar as there's no boxing going on at all at the moment, and nobody knows precisely when that will return. We've seen that Fury Wilder 3 will not take place, certainly not on July 18th. The date has been mooted of October the 3rd, but who really knows? My background has gone, by the way. This is my home DIY production, so hopefully if I press this button, it is what it is. We'll get the backdrop back. See that? Modern technology. Bear with me. You know, Bob Arum has said maybe the October the 3rd for Fury Wilder 3, a fight which many of you don't want to see in the first place. Certainly Dylan White will not be meeting Povetkin on May 2nd. I've seen that there's a tentative date, according to Eddie Hearn, of July 4th reschedule. Some people think Eddie has been massively optimistic about any big fights in the summer, you know, and thinks there's a better chance of him winning the Miss Black America pageant than packing out, you know, Spurs ground on any time in June or July for the Joshua Pulev fight. So inevitably these are very uncertain times, and we don't know when big time boxing or even small hall grassroots boxing will return to any public places anywhere in the world. Some could argue that Billy Joe will sit this period out. He'll get some kind of slap on the wrist whenever it's deemed safe to actually meet with the Border Control, unless they'd like to have a Zoom disciplinary meeting, and it won't be a big sanction. Others are claiming now that he may have blown the Canelo fight and etc, etc. What I would say, I do think it was silly, and I think Billy Joe has held his hands up to that now, and I wish he hadn't done it. Moving forward, I think the problem here is it's about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. One thing I hate about social media today, despite its numerous advantages, including me talking to you now, is the real pitchfork, lynch them and burn them at the stake mob when somebody is seen to have overstepped the mark or left themselves open and stuck their chin out, if we can go with a boxing metaphor. People saying Billy Joe should be banned for life. I've heard he's had death threats. It's disgusting. Piers Morgan, who's saying he's a reprehensible excuse for a man. I think Piers Morgan is a reprehensible excuse for a man, probably, but I'm not here to be bitter or start mudslinging and throwing accusations back and forth. What I will say is, at the end of the day, Billy Joe, I am confident in my heart that he has no attachment to domestic violence whatsoever. I don't believe he would ever be guilty of it. I think he would take an extremely dim view of it in his community and beyond, and I don't think that is what is in his heart. I think it was a tasteless, non-PC joke which has really blown up in his face rather badly. Listen, that's fair enough, and if you think sanctions are appropriate, then I don't necessarily disagree with you. What I need to say is this: if you idolise Sugar Ray Robinson, then know that his first, perhaps his only wife, I believe, Edna May, would frequently claim that he would slap her around like Carmen Basilio if ever she incurred his displeasure. It's only her word for it, but it's something other people like Jack Newfield, the journalist, has said. Sugar Ray Robinson was one arrogant son of a bitch, with scarcely any redeeming qualities except for his incredible, unparalleled boxing talent. Joe Lewis admits in his autobiography to having a domestic with his on and off flame Lena Horne, and at one point he said he almost came to with his hands around her throat, strangling her. As apologetic and remorseful as Joe was, he found himself almost in a kind of blackout in that position. Floyd Mayweather served a prison sentence for spousal abuse, which is all well documented and a matter of public record. Billy Joe has not done any of those things. He's made a fucking silly video. I would ask you to weigh that into the equation of sanity and arbitrary judgment. For the throwback, I'd like to take you back to Friday the 28th of November 1980, San Diego Sports Arena, California, for Matthew Saad Muhammad's fifth defence of the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship versus youthful Zambian contender Lottie Mawali. Saad, the human highlight reel, certainly produced a highlight reel KO on this occasion, but not without an element of struggling, as was part of his commercial appeal. In the first couple of rounds, Mawali started very brightly, a very useful fighter in his own right, and he's pretty much hitting Saad with everything. Defensively, Saad never claimed to be Wilfred Benitez, and you'll see that Mawali in the early going is hitting him at will with these almost textbook combinations of like double jab, right hand, left hook, right uppercut, and connecting with every shot. The difference, as it appeared crucial, was that he wasn't hurting Muhammad with any of the shots, who kept advancing and couldn't elicit much more than a smile from him when he did connect. Listen to the rather incongruous Zulu war chants of Mawali's allegedly small body of support in the arena, who certainly made themselves heard.
Muhammad, the light heavyweight champion, WBC version. He's wearing the black trunks with the white stripe and border. Lottie Mawali is wearing the white. Round one, it is scheduled for 15. They're wearing 10-ounce gloves. Mawali is going to peck away with that left hand if he can. And Franklin, formerly Matthew Franklin, Matthew Saad will try to counter that right hand in there. Pretty good double hooks by the left hand of Mawali. Mawali carrying the fight to the champion, scoring with his jabs. The champion hasn't gotten his rhythm yet. The challenger has gotten off good with 2 minutes left in round one. Mawali making good use of his arsenal. There aren't many Zambians here, but they're making a lot of noise. So far, it's been a good round for the challenger.
turned around in the third stanza, with Mawali being caught by a huge left hook that sent him careering across the ring, Saad jumping on him like a harbour shark in an effort to finish things there and then.
Shots to the head. Time running out in the round and the lower.
That one.
That's hurt.
That one got him in trouble.
Mawali is badly hurt. He's being battered in his own corner. 10 seconds to go in the round. Time running out. There's the bell.
Considering the dire straits he'd been in at the tail end of the third round, Mawali recovered reasonably well until he's nailed with that 1-2 left uppercut and a KO for the ages.
A minute to go in the round.
Down and up, man! Watch him, man! Down and up! Down and up, man! Come on, now, don't let him get away! Come on, now, don't let him get away!
Oh, that's it. A 1-2, a right, followed by a left hook. The mouthpiece went out.
That's
Taking
it.
it down, and the fight is over. The doctor is gone in the ring.
Thank you for watching episode 15 of Fightline. I hope you've enjoyed it. My name's Ben Doughty. Be lucky and keep punching.